killed the market for, of course. So now this had killed the market for, of course.
And the second one says that what's up, I'm on time, Lord. Really on time. And the second one, but let me hope your weekend was a nice one. Um Today is a Monday. Today is a beautiful Monday, like any other Monday. It has been a normal day. And today is, of course, 15th of July. We are also taking, actually, we are in the middle of this month. He said to, hey, and second one, what up? What's going on there? It is actually, it is 6 p.m. this side. I don't know what is the time that side and second one. Unfortunately, today I'm going to drive here alone. Maria is having issues today, but I hope tomorrow she will be with us. But today I'm taking you alone. But let me hope everything is moving. Oh, it's 11 a.m. Wow. For us, it is becoming night. For you, it is just morning. Oh, that's great. But let me hope your day's been, actually, your night was a nice one and your day is moving on with vibes. Um, we are broadcasting live from Kampala, Uganda. Yeah, this is Blackout Fire Network. And for those that are watching me for the first time, this is Blackout Fire Network. To endeavor to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And for those on Facebook and Twitter, endeavor to like and, of course, and follow these pages of Blackout Fire Network. On Facebook, don't forget it is Blackout Fire Radio Station, and Twitter it is Blackout Fire Network Store. And actually, we are also on TikTok. Blackout Fire Network is also on TikTok. You can like us on TikTok. You can do the same that I've been doing this side. So today being a Monday, we see that during the weekend we had elections. We had the Rwanda elections. People casted their votes in Rwanda. So this is where actually my question comes in. And the second one, will Rwanda elections bring a change? Because the other time we were here with Maria talking about um, we were talking about democracy, how democracy is lying Africans, of course diverting Africans from achieving what they must achieve. So now this, and of course, a democratic country. This is a country that survives on democracy. A democratic country. This is a country that organize elections for a period. Actually, they are called the terms. It can range from 5 years. In Uganda, it is 5 years. So, a democratic country, it is entitled for that country to, of course, to organize elections. A democratic country observes human rights. A democratic country, uh, of course, has a president. There must be a president in a democratic country, and that is what they call democracy. But we have been having, of course, different elections across Africa, and you have not seen any change. So we have not seen any change. We have been having different faces since independence, but we have not seen change. The way things were at the eve of independence is the way things are right about now. There are few things that have changed when we look at the infrastructure part of it, but the whole structure, it is still the same. So we have not achieved any change by now when we talk about, of course, these elections that we have been having. So that is where my questions now stands and says that will Rwanda elections bring a change? Because we see the incumbent president is not, of course, giving up in these elections, and that is Paul Kagame. He's not giving up. He's coming back for the second time. Actually, not even the second time. It's like he's coming for the fourth term in these elections, and this guy has been winning 99%, of course, percentage. Of course, he has been getting that majority vote of the Rwandese. So there are a lot of issues that are going on with Rwanda, starting with the tribalism, we got religion, terrorism in Democratic Republic of Congo. So a lot of issues. Rwanda is also going through hunger. So a lot of issues are going through Rwanda. So should we think that before Paul Kagame came in for this fourth term, has revised, of course, a lot that has been happening, of course, in Rwanda, has revised what Rwandan people, Rwandese are going through right about now to come with actually a different thing today. So we see that talking about, of course, the elections that happened a day, of course, we see that Rwanda, and actually in Kigali, Rwanda, we see that Rwandans voted on Monday, of course, in a presidential election that is, of course, expected to extend the rule of President Paul Kagame because he's expected to win. So, who has helped, of course, who has held power since the end of the country's genocide in 1994? We all aware that, of course, Rwanda had the genocide in 1994 that lasted for almost 2 years. A lot of people were killed there. And actually, Rwanda is also still going through the traumatic situations that are going on in Rwanda today. Rwandan people have not forgotten. They still have those fresh, of course, minds of that genocide. So we see that the authoritarian leader, the 66-year man, and that is Paul Kagame, Mr. Kagame, is running virtually unopposed. Can you imagine? You know, African countries at the times, they look to be funny. So if at all we can say that in Rwanda, we see that Kagame is running unopposed, it means that he has won. That is automatic winning. But there are a lot of complaints, there are a lot of things Rwanda is going through that they couldn't, of course, be allowing this man to come back. Now, what is the essence of elections if at all this man is coming unopposed in this fourth term? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense because if at all we are seeing Kagame coming out unopposed, it doesn't make sense to me. There is a way it jumps in my head and it doesn't fit there. So we see that uh, Kagame faced, of course, some opponents like Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda, and of course the independent candidate, and that is Philippe Mpayimana in the previous elections, and that was in 2017, in which Kagame took nearly 99% of the vote during. However much this guy was opposed by two strong people within Rwanda, he won with nearly 99%. Should we think that Rwandan people, they are not seeing what is going on? Should we think that Rwandan people, they like this president so much, besides whatever that is going on in Rwanda? The famine, a lot of people are unemployed. That is a common actually factor that is affecting actually almost all Africans, that people are unemployed. People are unable. to make ends meet in their different countries. Let it be here in Uganda. So if at all we see a president winning for almost 99%, it means these two unopposed leaders, they were not, the opposing leaders, they were not even voted for. So we see that his opponents struggled, the opponents of Paul Kagame struggled to attract supporters during the campaigning, but Habineza told the associated, told, of course, different media channels that has improved, and we are confident we will perform well this time. That is what he told, of course, different media platforms. And we see there our long lines at some polling stations in the capital of Kigali, and that is Rwanda. So election authorities said 9.5 million Rwandese were registered to vote in the country's population of that, of course, that is estimated to be between 10 million to 14 million. So it means the majority of the Rwandese vote. It is only three point something people that don't vote in Rwanda. And I guess these are the pygmies, the poor people. So this is, of course, going to be, of course, my first time to vote. I'm voting for President Kagame because I never seen a leader like him before. So he did a percentage out. So a lot of people give a lot of conspiracies, give a lot of excuses why they, of course, they vote for certain people. I've ever met, of course, a guy who told me that for him, he votes for President Museveni just because it is the only leader he has ever seen in life. So that's why he trusted this guy. So a lot of people, even in Rwanda, have the same, of course, idea. They still have that in their mind since they have seen, of course, Kagame. They have dropped in Kagame's government. Why don't they vote for this guy? However much a lot is going on. Street children were chased out of, actually were imprisoned in the Rwandan streets. We see that the freedom of speech in Rwanda is limited. It is not like in Uganda. In Uganda, you can. It is okay for you to abuse the president. It is okay for you to, of course, to criticize the president. It is okay for you to make the president in a cartoon form in Uganda. In Rwanda, it is a different case. And for people that have been in Rwanda, they can, of course, testify this. It is a different case. So we see that Kagame has led the East African countries since, of course, he says the power as the head of rebels who took control of the government that ended the genocide in 1994. So he was the vice president and de facto leader from 1994 to 2000 when he became the real president of Rwanda. So Kagame is among African leaders who have prolonged their rule by pursuing changes to the term limits. So, like I said at the beginning, a democratic country has to be with the president. So, a lot of people hide in democracy to of course, a lot of presidents hide in democracy to, of course, elongate their stay in power. In 2017, we had the same. In 2017, we had the same issue here in Uganda, where the term limit was extended by, of course, by the Ugandan president. So it is the same issue that happened in Rwanda in 2015, where we saw that Kagame himself prolonged his rule by pursuing changes to the term limits. So in 2015, we see that Rwandans in a referendum voted to lift the two-term limit. Now Kagame could stay in power until 2034. If at all he wins this, of course he has won because it's unopposed. So we see that now Kagame, of course, on Saturday, we see that journalists that, of course, he told journalists that his mandate comes from the people. So the ruling party and Rwandans have been asking me to stand for another mandate, he said. and that is President Kagame. So at personal level, I can comfortably go home and rest. So, Rwanda's elections take place amid the heightened fears of insecurity in Africa's greatest lake region. Rebels known as the M23 are fighting Congolese forces in the remote areas of the neighboring eastern Congo. So, between over 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan forces are fighting alongside M23. So, we see that the United Nations experts said in the report that circulated last week. So the US government has described the group as being backed by Rwanda. So Rwanda accuses Congo's military of recruiting fighters who are among the perpetrators of the genocide. So rights groups continue to raise alarm over harsh restrictions on human rights, including freedom of association in Rwanda. So Amnesty International, in the recent a statement expressed concern over threats, arbitrary detention, prosecution on trumped up charges, killings, and enforced disappearance, so targeting the political opposition. It is said that the suppression of dissenting voices, including among civic groups of the media, has chilling, of course, effect and limits to the space for debate for the people of Rwanda. So, like I said, the issue in Rwanda is a different when it comes to press, when it comes to media, when it comes to radio, TV. That's how people get it. Of course, it is a different case in Rwanda. In Rwanda, you abuse the president the way you want, you're going to be imprisoned for life, or you're going to disappear from the scene. So that is what of course happens in Rwanda. So if at all Rwanda is going through a lot of these challenges, I've not seen, of course, President Kagame, of course, coming out with a structured manifesto for this term that is going to win, because this guy is going to win. I've not seen, of course, his manifesto, apart from saying that the Rwandan people, they are the same, they are the people that are calling him to come back to mandate this, of course, this term that ends in 2034. But I've not seen, of course, this guy coming out to talk about the freedom of press in Rwanda. If people are free to talk what they want to talk, otherwise, you have the freedom to talk, but you don't have the freedom after talking. I've not seen this guy laying out strategies. We are seeing a lot of refugees, of course, dropping in Rwanda right about now from the Great Britain. But I've not seen this guy talking about this issue, because Rwanda is a small country. Right about now, the estimated population, the estimated number of people that are in Rwanda, there are over 14 million people. But it is, of course, overpopulated already with the 14 million people. Actually, Uganda is, of course, I think Uganda has 60 something, of course, 60 million, of course, people per now. Uganda is bigger than Rwanda, but the 14 million people still there, many depending it to the small area that Rwanda is sitting on. But we are seeing that challenge. We have seen a lot of people coming out to criticize this issue of the refugees that are flooding in Rwanda, of which these, of course, these are illegal migrants that were taken, that were in Europe, that were, sorry, that were in Britain, that they are taking to Rwanda. This guy, I don't know where this, of course, the political gain in this. I don't know the political gain in this of allowing, of course, foreigners in Rwanda. So I don't know, of course, President Kagame's intention for this, because here in Uganda we have refugees from Rwanda. Kenya once had, then they've been there. Tanzania once had the same, of course, refugees, of which they are not even allowed to go back to Rwanda. So that issue of refugees also remains understanding. Of course, remains unbalanced it remains unbalanced and of course not understandable well. There is all there is the issue of there is the issue of famine in Rwanda. People are hungry. So uh, this is a landlocked country, remember? This is a landlocked country that gets food from Uganda, that gets food from Tanzania, gets food from Kenya, gets food from Zambia. But I've not seen strategies being done towards this, apart from strengthening the army, because the Rwandan army is strengthened. So this guy is putting a lot of money in the army rather than what people really need. People are flooding into poverty. The other time I was talking to Maria, however, she did not take my point so serious. I was telling her that whenever I look at most of the Rwandese on Facebook, they're in villages. There are very few people. There is a certain group of tribe that is in Kigali. You can't find everyone in Kigali. Kigali is not for everyone, and that Kigali is the capital city of Rwanda. Kigali is not for everyone. It is for a certain tribe. It is for a certain group of people. It is the same thing with the job opportunities in Rwanda, despite of the few employment opportunities that we see in African countries, or we see that employment opportunities in Rwanda, they are for a selected tribe. And that is the tribe that is ruling Rwanda today, the Tutsi tribe. So if you're a Twa or if you're a Hutu, you don't say nonsense like I want to work. You don't say nonsense in Rwanda. And the issue of tribalism in Rwanda is still exists. However much President Kagame, of course, comes out and say, "I ended tribalism, I ended genocide in Rwanda." People of different tribes are they're still killed in Rwanda. There are still tribal crashes in Rwanda. Not even Rwanda. All African countries that are having those tribal crashes. But in Rwanda, it is a different thing. And the same Tutsi that we see in Rwanda, the same Tutsi that we see in Burundi, the same Tutsi that we see in Congo, they still fight for the same cause. So, for one who doesn't know Rwanda, Rwanda is officially the Republic of Rwanda and is a landlocked country in the Great Rift Valley of the Central Africa. So, where the African Great Lakes region and the Southeast African coverage is located. So, it is located a few degrees south of the equator. So, Rwanda is bordered by Uganda himself, where I'm broadcasting right about now. Rwanda is also bordered by Tanzania, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. So someone may be asking, why is it the rebels, the M23 rebels, which are allegedly to be supported by Rwanda, they're in Congo? Rwanda borders, Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo share border. So it is highly elevated, giving this, of course, the subsequent of the land of thousand hills. We see that, um, of course, Rwanda as a country, uh, its geography is dominated by mountains in the west and savanna to the southeast, with numerous lakes throughout the country. So the climate is temperate to the subtropical, with two rainy seasons and two dry seasons each year. So if you're ready to visit Rwanda today, expect two rainy seasons and of course two dry seasons if you're there in Rwanda. So if at all you're in plans of visiting Rwanda, you can prepare. So it is the most densely populated. Let me repeat it. It is the most densely populated mainland African country. So, 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 if at all we see, if at all we see the Rwandan president signing, of course, backbench treaties to welcome, to invite to make refugees that have been sent out from Europe, from Britain, to come to Rwanda. There are also even other countries actually that sent their refugees to Rwanda, including, is it Australia, something. There are even some other countries apart from Britain. However, Britain is the most trending, of course, country that was seen on media. But there are even other countries that, of course, that sent their refugees to, of course, to Rwanda. So Rwanda is the most, here in Africa, it is the most densely populated. Most densely populated. So if a country is of course densely populated, why do you of course send refugees to such a country rather than we are going to see insecurity, theft, killing of people, more rebels in Congo because of this population and insecurity among these countries that are surrounding Rwanda, including Uganda himself. So um, we see that among countries larger than, of course, 10,000 kilometers squared, it is the fifth most densely populated country in the world. It is the fifth most densely populated. For those that are you're learning Rwanda for the first time, Rwanda is the fifth most densely populated country in the world. Its capital and the largest city is Kigali. We see that hunter-gatherers settled the territory in the Stone and Iron Ages that followed by later by the Bantu peoples. So the population consolidated, of course, the first in two clans and then in two kingdoms. In the 15th century, we see that one kingdom under King Gihanga managed to incorporate several of its close neighbor territories, establishing the Kingdom of Rwanda. The Kingdom of Rwanda dominated the mid-18th century with the Tutsi kings conquering other military of course, centralizing power and, of course, enacting unifying policies. And by 1897, Germany colonized Rwanda as part of the German East Africa. Shegera. We know that during the scramble and the partition for Africa, different, of course, these different Bazungus, there is a way they demarcated, there is a way they partitioned the Africa and raised their flags on African land. So Rwanda at first was part of the German East Africa. Actually, Germany called all their territories, of course, the Germany East Africa. All those people, the Germany East Africa. So, and the Britain, they had the British Protectorate. We had the French colonies. The Portuguese were here. The Portuguese and the Dutch, are they the same? The Portuguese and the Dutch. Those people, they normally confuse me. Portuguese and Dutch. Someone can help me. Portuguese and Dutch, are they the same? Because we had the Dutch people in South Africa. So we see that of course, the German was followed by Belgium, which took control in the 1916 during the World War One. So both European nations ruled through the Rwandan king and, of course, perpetuated a pro-Tutsi policy. The Hutu population revolted in, of course, 1959. And, of course, this is how we see, of course, most of the Tutsi people coming to Uganda in 1959 after the Hutu took over power in Rwanda. So that is the time that we see most of the Tutsi people came to look for refuge in of course in Uganda. And if at all you ask the Rwandans, the Ugandan Rwandese that we are having here, they will tell you that if at all you get someone who is not a child, someone who is a grown up, someone will tell you that my parents traveled in 1959 to, of course, to Uganda because the Tutsi had that the Rwanda owns them. The Tutsi had it in their mind that for them there must be leaders in Rwanda, sorry. And it is the same thing that we still have today. And it is the same thing why genocide was there in 1994. It is the same reason why we see uh, the M23 rebels that is supported by Rwanda in Congo. It is the same reason. It is the same reason because of the Hutu that ruled of course in 1959, where most of the Tutsi people traveled to different countries in East Africa because of that dominance that was, of course, because of that domination of the Hutu people during that time. So we see that they massacred numerous Tutsi. These are the Hutu people during that time of 1959, and of course, ultimately established an independent Hutu-dominated republic in 1962, led by President George Kayibanda. So in 1973, military coup overthrew Kayibanda and brought Juvenal Habyarimana to power, who retained the pro-Hutu policy. The Tutsi-led Rwandan Patriotic Front (RPF) launched a civil war in the 1990s, where Habyarimana was assassinated in April 1994, where social tensions erupted in Rwanda genocide that spanned 100 days. So the RPF, and that is the Rwanda Patriotic Front, ended the genocide with a military victory in July 1994. So genocide actually started in Rwanda. It started with the killing of President Habyarimana and of course the Burundi president. At first I said that when you go to Burundi, you will find the same people that are in Rwanda. You'll find the Tutsi there, you'll find the Hutu there, and the Twa, of which it is the same population. They are the same tribes that we find in Rwanda, as well as some parts of Congo. Some parts of Congo have those elements of the Tutsi, Hutu, Twa people. The Twa people in Congo, they are called the Pygmies, those short people. So the killing of these two presidents, the Burundi president by that time, and the of course the Rwandan president by that time was Habyarimana, the Hutu president. It sparkled off the genocide that was bloody, that lasted for over 100 days. So Rwanda has been, of course, has been governed by the Rwanda Patriotic Front, the RPF, as a de facto one-party state since 1994, with former commander Paul Kagame as the president since 2000. So uh, at first, we see that Kagame, at the first beginning, we see that uh, Kagame was of course a vice president, but he becomes a full dressed president in 2000. That's when he became a president. Sorry. So we see that of course the country of course has been governed by a series of centralized authoritarian governments since pre-colonial times, although Rwanda has low levels of corruption compared with the neighboring countries like Uganda. It ranks among the lowest in international measurements of the government transparency, civil liberties, and quality of life. The population is young and, of course, predominantly rural based, like I said at the beginning. So, Rwanda has one of the youngest populations in the world. We see that Rwandans are drawn from just one culture and linguistic group, the Banyarwanda. However, within this group, there are, of course, subgroups like the Hutu, Tutsi, and the Twa. And the Hutu, these are the people that, of course, have that majority population of over 85%, and the Tutsi have 14%, accompanied by their fellows, the Twa, with 1% in the country. So if you're to move, Mosquito says that good afternoon, Innocent, nice t-shirt. Thank you, Jenna Mosquito. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to you. Let me hope actually you're doing good. Let me hope the day is moving on. Let me think that let me hope the day is moving on well, Jenna Mosquito. Thank you for liking my t-shirt. Yeah, it is a Black Hot Fire t-shirt. It's not my t-shirt. It is Keith's t-shirt. It is a Black Hot Fire t-shirt. Thank you, Jenna Mosquito, for coming through. Thank you for coming through, Jenna Mosquito. I mean the t-shirt. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the t-shirt. Thank you for appreciating me. Thank you, thank you, Jenna Mosquito. Thank you. Okay. Uh, Going back to Rwanda, um, we see that the Twa are the four, of course, the forest dwelling subgroups, the Hutu and the Tutsi and the Twa. Like I said, the Twa, the forest, they are the forest dwelling pygmy people, and are often considered descendants of the Rwandans, that earliest inhabitants. So Christianity is the largest religion in the country. The principal and the national language is Kinyarwanda, so spoken by native Rwandese with English, they know little English, with French, this is the official language, and the Swahili serving as additional official foreign languages. So Rwanda's economy is based mostly on subsistence agriculture. Coffee and tea are the major cash crops, and it is, of course, it exports. However, Rwanda also exports gold, but Rwanda has never had gold mines in itself. So we all wonder where Rwanda gets this kind of where Rwanda gets these mineral deals and how it deals with gold. So we see that Rwanda we see that Rwanda is also when we talk about Rwanda, tourism is the fast growing sector and is now the country's leading foreign exchange earner. The country is a member of African Union, United Nations, that is a must, Commonwealth of the Nations, COMESA, and of course East African Community. So, by the way, there are gorillas in Rwanda. You know, most said, where is Maria? Jenna Mosquito, Maria, she's having some issues today. She's unable to be here. So I'm alone here, struggling. Maria is having some issues. I guess we shall be with her tomorrow. If God wishes, we shall be with her tomorrow, probably. She will be here, by tomorrow. But today, she's unable to come through. It is me taking you It is me taking you in that rough situation. When is the Rwanda elections? General Mosquito from YouTube says that when is Rwanda elections? The Rwandese had elections on Monday. General Mosquito. They had elections. They had to cast their votes into those boxes on Monday. Yeah, elections were done, so we are waiting for the results. However, the Rwandan elections this time round, General Mosquito, it is a different case. We see this guy is unopposed. We see this guy is unopposed. The previous elections were, of course, in 2017, and Paul Kagame won with nearly 99%. So it means, actually, by that time, he had two opposition leaders. Yeah, he had two opposition leaders, but he won nearly 99%. It means the people of Rwanda still, let me think, democratically, the people of Rwanda still want Paul Kagame. But in a real sense, Rwanda is going through a lot. We couldn't be seeing even people going for voting today, the other day. When they had those elections, we couldn't be seeing people casting votes. But they had elections. They had the re-elections on Monday. On Monday. They had elections, General Mosquito. They had the elections on Monday. and of course it is today. So general elections in Rwanda are scheduled to be held today. In these elections, we see that Rwanda, of course, vote for both president and members of the Chamber of Deputies on the same day. So the current head of state remains Paul Kagame and is up for the fourth term. So, Mosquito, I think I've answered you. I've had elections today, and that is 15. I was watching even that video when the president of Rwanda was casting his vote. His daughter was beside. So this guy, that guy is not serious. He's not serious. I was saying that Rwanda is one of the most densely populated, of course, countries on earth, and is of course getting the fifth in the world. But we see refugees. It is not very easy for someone to create a lot of Rwandese. Most of the Rwandese have TikTok accounts, but for their personal build-up, for their personal issues, not for political issues or not for struggle issues. What happened in Kenya, it can't happen in Rwanda. Before even you think about, uh, actually, Paul Kagame is having that high spying network like Metternich. Mosquito, have you ever heard of that guy called Metternich in the French people, one of the French prime minister staff who used to smell, of course, what his opponents, what his enemies are thinking about Metternich. It is the same thing with Kagame. Before you think about plotting something, you are arrested, you're detained, you disappear. So there is a way the Ugandan president and of course the Rwandan president were bragging around about the issues that happened in Kenya. However, people influenced and of course they had change in the government policies. It wasn't made a law. But when we look at Uganda and Rwanda in particular, this is where we have had the presidents elongating their stay, elongating their term limits. Before, in Uganda, the referendum was made in 2017, and in Rwanda it was in 2015, where the president was given to elongate his power, his stay in power. Before, for someone to make 72 years in Uganda, you're done with elections. You're unable to be elected as the president of Uganda. But we see that the law has of course, the amendments were made in the law, referendums were made, and we can see the guy coming even after making 8 years. The guy is coming back to lead the country. Kagame is not so has not been he is not has not been so of course tired. He's still actually he's still an energetic mosaic with 66 years of old. He can do something. He can do things like a youth. 66 years. Besides is having even money, he can do some youthful things. But still talking about Rwanda, when we talk about history of Rwanda, for someone who is of course getting to know about Rwanda, the word Rwanda, you're hearing about the Rwandan country for now. We see that the modern human settlements of Rwanda is now Rwandan dates or is now Rwanda dates from at least the glacial period, either of the Neolithic period around 800 BC or the long humid period, which followed up to around 3000 BC. So archaeological excavations have revealed the evidence of the sparse settlements by hunter-gatherers in the late Stone Age, followed by the large population of the early Iron Age settlers who produced dimpled pottery, iron tools, and others. So these early inhabitants were the ancestors of the Twa. This is what history says. Were the ancestors of the Twa, because we know that the Tutsi came from is it Egypt, Ethiopia? The Tutsi came from one of those countries. This is where the Tutsi came from. And they say they say the Hutu came from Cameroon because this is where the Bantu is. And the Hutu, the Tutsi normally represent themselves in Rwanda as they are not Africans, as the Ethiopians, actually it is Ethiopia, as the Ethiopians said, they are not Africans. So we see that of course a number of battle groups migrated into Rwanda, clearing forest land for agriculture. So the forest dwelling Twa lost much of their inhabitant and moved to the mountain slopes. So historians have several theories regarding the nature of the Bantu migrations in Rwanda. And of course, we see that Hutu, while the Tutsi migrated later, it was the Tutsi that came to Rwanda first, and we saw the Hutu. So we see that the Tutsi migrated later to form a distinct racial group, possibly of Neo-Hamitic origin. An alternative says that the incoming groups integrated into rather than conquering the existing society. So that's what they say about it. But when we look at, of course, the earliest social form of organization in the area was the clan. There is a saying in Rwanda they call obwoko, genomosquito. There is saying in Rwanda they call obwoko, Uboko, and that is it means clan. So the clans were not limited to the genealogical lineages or geographical area, and most of included the Hutu and the Tutsi and the Twa that we see. Those are the different groups that we are having in Rwanda today. There are normally three that are known. However, people are migrating. However, people are moving to different places. There are even Ugandans in Rwanda. So one kingdom under King Gihanga managed to incorporate several of its close neighbor territories, establishing the Kingdom of Rwanda. We see that we see that 8 kingdoms had existed by, of course, 1700. By 1700, 18 kingdoms had existed in the present-day Rwanda. One of these, the Kingdom of Rwanda, that ruled by the Tutsi, and that is the Nyinganya clan, that became increasingly dominant from the mid-18th century. The kingdom reached its greatest extent during the 19th century under the reign of King Kigeli Rwabugiri, that conquered several small states and expanded the kingdom west and north of Rwanda and initiated administrative reforms. So these included the Ubuke, I talked about this, in which the Tutsi patrons ceded, of course, cattle and therefore privileged status to the Hutu and the Tutsi clans in exchange for economic and personal service. So the Berlin, so this was the game changer of the entire situation. And what that was the Berlin Conference of the 1884 that assigned the territory of the German East African Empire, who declared it to be part of the German East Africa. In the 1894, of course, Emperor Gustav Adolf von Gotzen was the first European to cross the entire territory of Rwanda. He crossed from the southeast of Lake Kivu and, of course, met the king. And in 1897, we see that the German established a presence in Rwanda with the formation of an alliance with the king, beginning the colonial era. And it is the same thing the British did in, of course, in Uganda. When the British came here in Uganda, they collaborated with the king of Buganda, but in reality, Uganda as a country by that time, uh, actually actually Uganda, it wasn't even like Uganda was demarcated by that time. No demarcations were made by that time, but we see during that time there was an empire that was called Bunyoro Kitara Empire in the so-called Uganda before it was demarcated. Actually, Bunyoro Kitara Empire extended towards even some parts of Tanzania. It was a big empire. Within that empire, there were kingdoms like Buganda itself. There was Buganda. There were kingdoms like Busoga. However, Buganda was the strongest. There were also chiefdoms. So whenever these Bazungus could come to East Africa or could come to Africa, they could collaborate with the kings. And no matter why, for me, I normally say that it is the kings that sold us to these people. The chiefs, the African kings, they are the same people that sold us to these people because they cooperated with these people at their coming. It is the same thing that we see in Rwanda. When the when the Germans came to Rwanda, they of course they pressed their presence in Rwanda. Okitegeera, they pressed their presence in Rwanda with the formation of an alliance with the king. So they collaborated with the king during that time. So beginning the colonial era in Rwanda. So uh, the Germans did not significantly alter the social structures of the country, but exerted influence by supporting the king. It is not only in Rwanda, even here in Uganda, the British supported the king so much. We see that no matter why these kings were even exiled during that time, they had education from Britain during that time because there was that direct support that was flowing in the kingdom. So we see that the existing, of course, we see that the Germans exerted influence by supporting the king and the existing hierarchy, the delegating power to the local chiefs. Like I said, there were chiefdoms that were led by chiefs. There were kings that were led by the king. Kingdoms that were led by the kings, and there were empires that were led by the emperors here in Africa. These things existed here. So we see that, of course, Belgian forces invaded Rwanda and Burundi during that time, and that was in the 1916 during the World War One. Because World War One, I think it existed between 1914 and 1918. So in 1916, as the world was fighting, the Belgians used this chance and, of course, invaded Rwanda and Burundi. So, and later in 1922, we see that these Aboriginals, they started to rule both Rwanda and Burundi as the League of Nations mandate called Rwanda Burundi, and it started a period of more direct colonial rule between these two countries, Burundi and Rwanda. So the Belgians simplified and decentralized the power structure, introduced large-scale projects in education, health, public service, uh, health, like I said, public service, and of course agriculture supervision because agriculture was here. Agriculture people were cultivating their stuffs here in Africa. All they had to do is supervision. All they had to do is supervision on cash crops like coffee, like cotton during that time, just supervision because African people used to do agriculture here. So we see that the Belgians also introduced large-scale projects in education. They also introduced, of course, agricultural supervision, including new crops and improved agricultural techniques to try to reduce the incidence of famine, which was wrong. They were not because These people, they concentrated so much. This is wrong. They concentrated so much on cash crops. And that's why, even up to now, most of the African countries, they're suffering from famine because it is a colonial policy for you to grow cash crops rather than food crops. But in reality, at the end, after cultivating your cash crops, you're going to go and look for food to eat. So if you're this someone who concentrates so much on cotton, are you going to eat cotton? You're someone who concentrates on, are you going to eat coffee? These are cash crops. Are you going to eat cloves? Are you going to eat cloves? Has anyone ever ate cloves here? You get satisfied like you go in a restaurant, give me that dish of cloves. You sit, they give you cloves on a plate. It doesn't make sense. But this was a policy that was introduced by the colonizers, and it is still existing here. People, there is a way people specialize in cash crops rather than food crops, and that's why we see famine. Rwanda is going through famine. So famine has not started today in Africa. Like I said, the other day we had a shand that was on Friday. I said that we may not see change in African politics today. We may not see change. Reason being, there are different people that we see coming out, even when Paul Kagame dies today, we shall see another president in Rwanda. So that doesn't, of course, doesn't stress us so much. But the policies, the colonial policies that were here during colonial period, they are the same policies that we still have. The education policies, they are the same policies that we have, where someone has to look for a white collar job. They're the same policies that we still have. People look, people are starting to look for jobs, not of course creating jobs. People look at vocational, of course, skills as unnecessary, as any profession, which doesn't make sense. At the end, the people that are called unprofessional, the people that are called that have not studied well, these are the people that are having money. These are people that are doing skilling jobs, carpentry, poultry, and other skilling jobs. Let it be computer studies stuff. You need skills, you don't need theory. You don't need to be moving looking for job. People should be looking for you for the service that you're providing. But which service are you going to provide yet you're looking for a job? Yet you're moving to offices, different offices, to different people. You're even bribing those people to get employed. The policies that we are having, they are the fake policies that, of course, that are causing problems today in Africa. So, uh, we see that both in Rwanda, both Germans and the Belgians, in their wake of the new imperialism, promoted the Tutsi supremacy, considering the Hutu and the Tutsi different races. And in 1935, uh, uh, Belgian, Belgium introduced an identity card system. So, so uh, the identity card system, it is also another issue to be discussed about. Sorry, guys, for that. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. But the identity card system, we have even have actually this is not an African, of course, ideal or idea. The identity card system. When you come to Uganda, when you come to Uganda, of course, you have to register yourself with you. You get a national ID. Within this national ID, it includes your names, full names, your parents' names, where you stay, and your tribe. These people introduced the identity card system just because they wanted to separate people depending on their tribes. When we saw, it is the same thing that happened in South Africa, where the blacks or the native South Africans were separated from the whites. They could give you a banner. You move with a banner identifying for me. My name is INNOSSETU. I'm black. I'm an African. I'm a native from Uganda, Kampala, Uganda. So you wear that banner on you. So these wazungus are fun. They are fun. There are things they did here, and they are the same things that we still have even up to now. We still have the same issues. So the identity card system in Rwanda, this was a system that was introduced by the Belgians and of course the Germans to identify different categories of people in Rwanda. And it was followed by the census. Remember, it was followed by the census, and it was very easy for them to identify the number of a number of people of different tribe, to separate them depending on their goals, why they introduced this stuff of the card system, the identity card system in Rwanda. So during the census, it was very easy for you to identify, like, these are Hutus, these are Tutsis, these are the minority Twas in Rwanda, because of the identity system. So uh, there are, of course, the identity card system, which, of course, considering the Hutu and the Tutsi in different races, it was very important to know that the Hutu is a Hutu and the Tutsi is a Tutsi and the Twa is a Twa, and those are different races. And there is no way these people can unite. There is no way different tribes can unite here in Africa, because that identification, for me, I'm a Uganda. That identification, for me, I'm a Tutsi. That identification, for me, I'm a Hutu. So these people created, identified us in two different tribes. And it is the same problem that is affecting Africans today. We identify ourselves in two tribes. That is where we mess. We identify ourselves in two different tribes. That is the problem that we are having today. We identify. It is very important for me to say I'm a Muganda from Uganda rather than I'm an African from Uganda. It is very important. I can't even miss out when I go when I go somewhere, and I of course address myself that I'm a Tutsi from Rwanda, from Kigali, Rwanda. It is very important because these people created this identity within African minds. It started with the identity card system. It went to census, and now it identified that we are different races. The Tutsi, the Hutu, Twa, those are different races within Rwanda. So we see that, of course, we see that in 19, of course, 35, Belgian, of course, of course, like I said, it was very important to understand that Tutsi, Twa, they are different races because of the, of course, the caste system. So, which of course it labeled the caste system. It labeled each individual as either Tutsi, Hutu, Twa, or nationalized or neutralized. What were the neutrals? These are the Bazungos now. They are neutralized for them. They are neutral. They follow anywhere. Why is it that this system did not make Africans neutral, that they understand each other? They neutralize into, of course, different tribes. Why is it that it is the Belgians that we saw that they neutralized themselves? So, while it had been, of course, previously possible for particularly wealthy Hutu to become, of course, a honorary Tutsi, the identity cards prevented any further movement between these classes. I said this, when you go to Rwanda, there is a certain group that lives in town, and that is Kigali. There is also a group, and this is the majority group of the Hutu that live in villages. Most of the Hutus live in villages because the identity card system, it restricted intermixing with these races, how they call it, these tribes. It was very hard to mix, to intermarry, to collaborate, to work together. It is the same thing that is happening in Rwanda today. We see that we see that Rwandese today, the uh, during job opportunities, race is very important. Even here in Uganda, race is very important. There is a certain group of people that must be employed, and the other party must not be employed. Not even, not even a toilet cleaner. You must stay unemployed. You must stay poor. So we see that the legion, of course, continued to rule Rwanda, Urundi. Actually, the Belgians were ruling these two countries, the Rwanda and Burundi, collectively, of which Rwanda formed the north part as a UN trust territory after the Second World War, with a mandate to oversee eventual independence. So tensions escalated between the Tutsi, who favored the early independence, and the Hutu emancipation movement, culminating in the 1959 Rwandan Revolution. I said most of the Tutsi moved to Uganda as refugees during this time, the 1959 revolution. And the Hutu during this time, they killed a lot of Tutsis. That's why most of the Tutsis went into exile. That's why most of the Tutsis traveled during that time to go to Kenya, to go to Tanzania, and even here in Uganda during the 1959 revolution. So Hutu activists began killing Tutsi and destroying their houses, forcing more than 100, of course, thousand people to seek refuge in neighboring countries. And in 1961, the suddenly pro-Hutu Belgians held a referendum in which the country voted to abolish the monarch Rwanda, to abolish the monarch. So Rwanda um, was separated from Burundi because they were ruling these two countries jointly, Burundi and of course the Rwanda. So Rwanda was separated from Burundi and gained independence on 1st July 1962, which is of course commemorated as Independence Day, a national holiday in Rwanda, just like it is in 9th October in Uganda, 1962. Every 9th October in Uganda is celebrated as, of course, an Independence Day as a holiday. So cycles of violence followed the exiled Tutsi attacking from neighboring countries like Uganda, and the Hutu retaliating with the large-scale slaughter and repression of the of the Tutsi. In 1973, Juvenal Habyarimana took power in a military coup. So pro-Hutu discrimination continued, but there was great economic prosperity and reduced amount of violence against Tutsi. The poor remained marginalized, and by 1990 were almost entirely forced out of the forests by the government. So many became beggars on streets. However, we see that most of the street kids in Rwanda, they were imprisoned, they were detained. What are you doing on streets of Kigali? You go in prison. That is Rwanda. So most of the poor people who used to live in that peasantry life, in that hunting, fruit gathering life, they were chased out of the forests during that time. So most of these people, they became beggars on roads because they had no way of surviving. So Rwanda's population had increased from 1.6 million people from 1934 at 1 to 7.1 million in the 1989, leading to a competition for land within Rwanda. So there is a lot of land fragmentation within Rwanda. Don't forget that. A lot of land fragmentation with it because Rwanda is a small country with the densely populated. It is a small country that is densely populated. So there is a lot of land fragmentation. So we see that only in 1990, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a labor group composed of the Tutsi refugees, invaded northern Rwanda from their base in Uganda, initiating the Rwanda, of course, civil war. The group commended the Hutu-dominated government for failing to democratize and confront the problems facing these refugees. Neither side was able to gain a decisive advantage in the war, but by 1992, it had weakened it had weakened Habyarimana's authority. By that time, Habyarimana, that guy that was, of course, that died in a plane crash, was the leader of Rwanda during that time. So, mass destructions forced him into a coalition with, of course, domestic opposition and eventually to sign the 1993 Arusha Accords with the Rwanda Patriotic Front, which is, of course, the leading party in Rwanda today under General Paul Kagame. So the ceasefire ended on 6th April 1994 when Habyarimana's plane was shot down near Kigali airport, killing him and the president of Burundi. So, um, the president of Burundi was a Hutu. Uh, by 1994, by 1994, during that time, the government in Burundi and Rwanda, these were governments that were led by the Hutus. Remember, the belligerents, by the time they were leaving, by the time Rwanda and Burundi were getting independence, the belligerents were supporting the Hutu. So no matter why we see during the uh, uh, independence, from independence to 1994, Rwanda and Burundi were ruled by the Hutu presidents. So we see that Habyarimana was shot down near Kigali airport in a plane, where he of course he died. So the witch began, of course, within a few hours over the course of approximately 100 days between. We see that after the killing, The shooting down of the plane served as a catalyst. It speeded up the Rwandan genocide. For a long time, these people were separated through the card system. Now, the killing, the shooting down of the plane where Habyarimana and the Burundi president were served as a catalyst for the Rwandan genocide, which began with a few hours over the course of approximately 100 days. Those are three good months and 10 days, of which between 500 to 1 million Tutsi and politically, of course, moderated Hutu were killed in the well-planned attacks on the orders of the interim government. So many Twa were also killed despite not being directly, of course, targeted. The issue was targeting these Hutu minorities within Rwanda. So the Tutsi Rwanda Patriotic Front, like I said, this is the ruling party in Rwanda under Paul Kagame, restarted their offensive and it took control of the country. Of course, methodologically, we see that gaining control of the whole country by mid-July. The international response to the genocide was limited, with major powers reluctant to strengthen the already overstretched UN peacekeeping force. When, of course, the RPF, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, took over approximately 2 million Hutu, a million Hutu fled to the neighboring countries like Uganda, in particular Zaire, which is Congo, fearing, of course, reprisals. Additionally, the Rwanda Patriotic Front led army was a key, of course, belligerent in the First and the Second Congo Wars. Within Rwanda, a period of reconciliation and justice began with the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal of Rwanda, and of course the reintroduction of the Gakaka, a traditional village court system. So I was telling Maria the other time that the local government is serious in Rwanda. When it comes to local government, it is serious in Rwanda. But we see that since 2000, Rwanda's economy, tourist numbers, human development index have grown rapidly, though the people are still poor. Poverty, poverty rate is still high in Rwanda. Even up to now, people are poor. People don't have money. People can't survive. People can't afford to buy basic needs in life. Most of the Rwandese, no matter why, most of them, they come here as refugees. They come to stay here in Uganda because of the devastating, because of the extreme, of course, situation they are going through uh, in Rwanda. Jason Lally, thanks for that. Jason from Facebook, from Facebook, from Facebook. Jason, thanks for that. But we see in 2009, Rwanda joined a lot of organizations, including the Commonwealth, although the country has never been part of the British Empire. So, when we look at Rwanda, is of course is a de facto one-party state. Rwanda as a country is a de facto one-party state ruled by the Rwandan Patriotic Front. I've been talking about this, and its leader is Paul Kagame. This was a Tutsi-led rebel group. It was a later Tutsi-led rebel group that, of course, transformed into a party because it is the ruling party in Rwanda. It is a huge party within Rwanda. And of course, I said its leader is Paul Kagame, that continuously, of which Paul Kagame continuously since the end of the Civil War in 1994. Although he has been its leader, that's what I mean, he has been its leader since 1994. Although Rwanda is, of course, nominally democratic, elections are manipulated in various ways, which include banning opposition parties. It includes banning opposition parties, censoring the press, actually, no freedom of speech and expression within Rwanda. This is how this party now, this so-called RPF, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, that this is how it survives. So, arresting or assassinating critics, it is not very easy for you to come out on a platform like this in Rwanda. You start shouting, you start raising your veins start coming out. You talk about the president of Rwanda. In Rwanda, it doesn't happen. How come? It doesn't happen. Otherwise, you'll be assassinated, you'll be arrested. Real, and of course, electoral fraud. However much people could be loving someone, it is not very easy to find where countries we see a country where the president is winning almost nearly 99% of the vote. It means the guy is winning the majority of the vote. A lot of fraud is done. So stupid enough you want to make me understand that it is only 1% of the people that don't vote for uh, that don't like of course Paul Kagame in Rwanda. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it will never make sense to me. You can even in Uganda where we see that Museveni strives, he gets like 52%. He gets like 60, but getting 99%, that is actually a clear sign of fraud. There is no way it can, unless when it is a monarch. But if you call it a democratic country and the people are winning just by you're winning by 99%, that's not true. But we see that, like I said, uh, banning of opposition parties, arresting and assassinating of critics, electoral fraud. The Rwanda Patriotic Front is a Tutsi dominated party, but receives support from other communities as well. But it is a Tutsi dominated party, including its leader, the president, the incumbent president of Rwanda, is a Tutsi. So the constitution was adopted following the national referendum in the 2003, replacing the transitional constitution which had been in place since 1994. So the constitution mandates a multi-party system of the government. That is the constitution in Rwanda. It mandates that multi-party system of government in Rwanda, where INNOSSETU is a Rwandi and is free to form a political party. It is in the constitution. It is okay for you to form the opposition, but is it okay for you to survive as an opposition leader in Rwanda, as an opposition critic in Rwanda? It is it is just not fair. It is just like it can't happen. A lot of people have been arrested, assassinated, disappearances, restriction to freedom of speech and expression. So we see that where we see that the constitution mandates a multi-party system of government with with the politics based on democracy and elections. Yeah, elections that are done for a period of time. However, we see the same person, elections are done, and that is the democracy. We, there must be a constitution, and the constitution. This is actually uh, this is where laws are. Let me say that this is where laws are indicated and kept in a simple way. That is the constitution. So whenever someone wants um, to elongate his power, he has to do with the constitution. He has to go back. He has to put it in the constitution, and no one will complain. However, it is very hard. Things are becoming very hard because it is not very easy to see. People putting it putting it in constitution to do fraud of elections, but it is in a constitution that a democratic country must hold elections for a period of time, and that's why we see these people coming out every time, coming out for elections, stupid elections. Yet they are the same people that win with with the nearly 99%. Doesn't make sense. So we see that, however, the Constitution places conditions on how political parties may operate, and that is Article 54 that states that the political organization are prohibited from basing themselves on race, ethnic group, tribe, clan, religion, sex, any other division. But we see the Rwandan Patriotic Front, it is a Tutsi-dominated political party in Rwanda. So does that, of course, article in their constitution, that Article 54, where does it apply now? It doesn't apply anywhere. Because if at all it states that the political organizations within Rwanda are prohibited from basing themselves on race, ethnic group, tribe, clan, religion, sex, and others, why is it that we see that the leading political party is of course dominated by the Tutsi? This is a Tutsi dominated party. So we see that the president of Rwanda is the head of state and has broad powers. This is the constitution. The president of Rwanda is the head of state and has broad powers, including creating policy in conjunction with the cabinet of Rwanda. It is the president that creates policy in conjunction with the president of Rwanda, with the cabinet of Rwanda, commanding the armed forces. It is very important in Rwanda for the president to command the armed forces, negotiating and ratifying treaties, signing the presidential orders. And this is actually how now democracy starts working from here. Democracy in Africa starts from here. The president of Rwanda is the head of state. Then this now democracy has started working. The president has broad powers, including creating policy in conjunction with the cabinet. Now democracy works. Commanding the armed forces, this is what African leaders do. Negotiating and ratifying treaties, this is what they do. Someone will tell you, Ruto has met Biden. Ruto is signing treaties where we see that the police of Rwanda has been deployed in Haiti on behalf of the UN, because now they think this is what they call democracy, signing treaties and ratifying them, signing presidential orders, and declaring war or a state of emergency. They're very easy at creating these. We had curfew, we had state of emergencies during COVID-19 where you couldn't be allowed to move. These were presidential orders. They even said that they were presidential directives. Actually, they called them directives because they think that is democracy by expressing that. So, the president is elected every 7 years, that is Rwanda, and appoints the prime minister and all other members of the cabinet. However much in Uganda, the president is elected after 5 years, but in Rwanda it is 7 years. The president has to enjoy those 7 years when he's sitting on that chair of presidency within Rwanda. We see that he appoints the prime minister and all other members of the cabinet. So the parliament consists of two chambers in Rwanda. It makes the legislation and is empowered by the constitution to oversee the activities of the president and the cabinet. So the lower chamber is the chamber of deputies, which has 80 members serving 5-year terms. So 24 of these seats are reserved for women, elected through a joint assembly of local government officials and another 3 seats are reserved for youth and disabled members. So the remaining 53 are elected by the universal suffrage under the proportional representation system. That is Rwanda. We are in Rwanda. We are in Rwanda. So, Rwanda's legal system is largely based on the German and Belgian civil law system and customary law. So, the other time, and second one was talking to us, and he was like, "Why is it that we see in court, we see those people putting on those bazungu wigs in court? Why is it that we still see that?" Because most of the political system, the policies that we are having here in Africa, they are based on the Bazungu policies that colonized us here. For the case of Kenya, for the case of Uganda, these were British protectorates. So whatever we do here in Uganda is so much influenced by the colonizer. That's why the second one was saying that why is like we see those people they're still having those Bazungu wigs in courts, which doesn't make sense. So in Rwanda, the legal system is largely based on the German and Belgian civil law system and the customary law. So the judiciary is independent of the executive branch, although the president and the Senate are involved in the appointment of the Supreme Court judges. Human Rights Watch has, of course, praised the Rwandan government for the progress that it has made in uh, oh, this is wrong. There is no justice. People are dying. If at all you can arrest street children and you say that there is justice and the abolition of death penalty, are you stupid? But also alleges that interference in the judicial system, we see that interference of the judicial system by members of the government is so much in Rwanda, such as the politically motivated appointment of the judges, misuse of course, prosecution power and the pressure on judges. So judges are pressurized by the government officials that are big in government. If at all you decide like if at all you judge like this in court, you may end up in the prison. So to make, of course, it is very hard for these judges to make particular decisions by themselves. There are a lot of that. The government has all the government officials have a lot of fingerprints in the judicial system in uh, in Rwanda. So misuse of course, prosecution power and pressure on judges to make particular decisions. So the Constitution provides for two types of course, courts, and that is the ordinary court and the specialized courts. This is Rwanda. Ordinary courts are the Supreme Court and the High Court, the regional courts, while the specialized court are military courts. And a system of commercial courts was created in 2011 to expedite commercial limitations. So between 2004 and 2012, a system of Gakaka courts, and these are the village courts, was in operation. The Gagaka or the village courts are a Rwandan traditional court operated by villages and communities and was revived to expedite the trials of genocide suspects. So the court succeeded the clearing of the backlog of genocide cases, but was criticized by human rights groups and not meeting the legal fair standard. Normally, these village courts, uh, village, village courts, there is a way they handle their issues. We also have village courts in Uganda, but the village courts, there is a way they handle their issues. Their issues are not so like that. They don't handle issues in a legal way. They handle issues depending on the mass of the people. If at all they get you raping someone, I think the smallest penalty they can give you in a village is beating you up to death if they don't castrate you. Those are village courts. If at all they get a thief, someone has been robbing someone in a village courts, That is total mob justice. Someone end up losing his life. Whether that those are village courts. Village courts, if at all they say that we don't want to see someone moving at night beyond 10 p.m. at night, and they find you moving, they will beat you. They will beat you in a crazy way. So those are village courts. We also have village courts here in Uganda. They are there. Issues are handled by the village. They don't go to the police. They don't go to there. And villagers. You know how village people handle issues. But when they get you doing something improper, they give you the penalty. Yeah, there is no way. There is no bureaucracy in that. You have to pile this. What is your name? You have to pile a lot of books. Village courts, they solve issues now and then. Those are immediate courts in a short term. They are immediate courts. So we also have them in Rwanda. We see that Rwanda today, Rwanda is a member of the United. We see that Rwanda has a local, however much they said that Rwanda has low levels of corruption, but we see that corruption is everywhere. When you look at everything, everything that is done in a country survives on corruption, if I may say. I've been talking about how the judiciary doesn't work for it. So these people are bribed, these people are given money. These people are given money. So though Rwanda is of course the 50th cleanest out of the 47 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and 50th cleanest country out of the 175 countries in the world, we see that the constitution provides for an ombudsman, which of course duties include prevention and fighting corruption. They are there. We also have in Uganda anti-corruption union, but these things are all working. These things are not working. These things are not working. However much they say that public officials, including the presidents, are required by the constitution to declare their wealth to the ombudsman and the public, those who do not, of course, comply are suspended from office. This is bullshit. It is not very easy to estimate the wealth of a government of the government officials of government officials. Most of these people do their businesses out of the country. Someone someone invests his money in UK. Someone keeps his money in UK. So how are you going to, of course, how are you going to be able to see how much money this person gets, and how much money how heavy this guy, of course, wiles in terms of riches and assets? It's not very easy. This is bullshit to make Africans blind. To make Africans blind to think that constitution is working, because the constitution the constitution is the what? The constitution is the democracy that we see. But the constitution itself is corrupted. The constitution itself is so much corrupted. So we see that illegal and arbitrary detention, threats, and other forms of intimidation, disappearances, politically motivated trials, and massacres of peacefully protesting civilians in Rwanda still exist. I said the issue that happened in Kenya recently, it can even take years to see it in Rwanda. Like I said, I was talking about that Metternich guy. He was a French guy, French something guy. Metternich was prime minister, was a French prime minister that used, this is what books said, that he used to smell what his enemies was thinking about. It is the same case in Rwanda. Kagame will smell what you're plotting. The next day will be you will be opening your car to they arrest you, they detain you, you prepare to riot, they detain you. He smells what his enemies are thinking, what his enemies are building. So Rwanda has, of course, Rwanda is, of course, is a member of very many organizations, world organizations, including the United Nations, African Union, Francophone, and that is the Francophone. It is that organization that brings together all the former French colonies, East African Community, and the Commonwealth of Nations. So for many years during the Habyarimana's regime, the country maintained close ties with France as well as the Belgians. Like I said, at the time of independence, the Belgians were supporting the Hutu, and Habyarimana was a Hutu person. That's why we see that immediately after his death, that we saw genocide within Rwanda. So, uh, uh, under the Rwanda Patriotic Government, however, Rwanda has sought closer ties with the neighboring countries in the East African community and with the English-speaking world. The democratic relations with France were suspended in 2006 following the following the indictment of the Rwandan officials by the French judge. And despite their restoration in 2010, as the 2015 relations between the countries remained strained even up to now. So relations with the Democratic Republic of Congo were tense following Rwanda's involvement in the First and Second Congo Wars. So there are a lot of tensions within Rwanda and Congo because Congo claims that it is allegedly said that the M23 rebels in Congo, they're supported by the Rwandese, and the Rwandese also claim that they are fighting. They want to remove those. Uh, they want to remove those people that, of course, ran to Congo to seek refuge, that were the plotters of the genocide. This is what these people say. That's what the president of Rwanda and the Rwandan government say about the Congo Rwanda tension. So we see that the Congolese army alleged, of course, Rwanda attacks on their troops, while Rwanda blamed the Congolese government for failing to suppress Hutu rebels in North and South Kivu provinces. So in 2010 only, we see that the United Nations released a report accusing the Rwandan army of committing wide-scale human rights violations and crimes against humanity in the Democratic Republic of Congo during the First and Second Wars. So charges they are denied by the Rwandan government, of course. So relations soured further in 2012, 2015, 2020, and 21. So peace has been restored. However, we see a lot of tensions between these two, of course, countries, and that is Congo and, of course, and Rwanda. I normally watch whenever they say that there are some serious attacks made by these M23 label groups. These are people that have sophisticated new weapons. They have sophisticated new weapons that they use. It is not very easy to find a rebel group having such newest weapons. So it means there is somebody, rich behind this, of course, this kind of a rebel group that is making the Congolese people known to sleep. That is making Congolese people known to sleep. So we see that when we look at the administrative divisions within Rwanda, yes, today we are talking about Rwanda. Before the Western colonization, the Rwandan government system had a system of political pluralism and power sharing. Despite there being a strict hierarchy, the pre-colonial system achieved an established combined system of the centralized power and decentralized autonomous units. So under the monarch, the elected chief governed, of course, a province that was divided into multiple districts. Sorry, two other officials appointed by the head chief governed the district, and one official was allocated the power over the land, while other oversaw cattle. So the king, Mwami, exercised control through the system of provinces, districts, hills, and neighborhoods. As of 2003, the constitution divided Rwanda into provinces which are called the Intara and districts which are called Urere. So cities, municipalities, towns, sectors, cells, and villages are the larger divisions, and their borders are established by the parliament. And in June, and of course, and in 2006, Rwanda was of course reorganized such that 12 provinces were merged to create five, and 106 districts were merged into 30. So the present borders are drawn in 2006, aimed at decentralizing power and removing associations with the old system and the genocide. So the primarily on the geography, these are the northern provinces, the southern provinces, eastern and western provinces, and the municipality of the Kigali center, and that is the capital of Rwanda. So the five provinces act as intermediaries between the national government and their constituent districts to ensure that the national policies are implemented at the district level. The Rwanda decentralization strategic framework developed by the Ministry of the Local Government assigns to provinces the responsibility for coordinating governance issues in the provinces. This is what I was telling Maria, that the local government is working in Rwanda. It's not like in Uganda. It's not like in Uganda, the local government is strong in Rwanda. So, as well as more, of course, monitoring and evaluation. So, each province is headed by the governor, appointed by the president, and approved by the Senate. The districts are responsible for coordinating public service delivery and economic development. They are divided into sectors which are responsible for delivery of public service as mandated by the district. So districts and sectors have directly smallest political units, providing a link between the people largest largest country, and the fourth smallest on the African mainland after Gambia, Eswatini, and Djibouti. So it is comparable in the size of Burundi and Haiti and Albania. So the entire country is at the high altitude, and of course the lowest points of Rusizi River at 950 meters. We see that Rwanda is located in the central East Africa, and of course is bordered by the Democratic Republic of Congo to the west, Uganda to the north, Tanzania in the east, and Burundi to the south. It lies a few degrees south of the equator, and it is landlocked. The capital is Kigali and is located near the center of Rwanda. So, uh, Rwanda, of course, uh, uh, Rwanda as a country, it is small. The reality is the country is small. That is what I can say about it. The reality is the country is very small. So, however much uh, we see that the country is fighting, let me say the president may be fighting, but there is no fight you can make without making improvements in the education system. If at all we can't see change, if at all we can't see new policies, government schools that provide free education, we have them here. We have them here that provide free education, but doesn't make any sense. They don't make sense. It is very, of course, inappropriate to get free education, that is not okay. To get free education which doesn't give you that knowledge to be your own self, rather to indoctrinate you, rather to show you that religion is the only way, rather to show you that Africans have to be separated on tribal basis, rather to show you that you have to look for job, neither to create it. The education that hides away you from things like we have natural resources here. We can mine them and get money within ourselves, rather than calling out foreigners to mine our minerals here. That education system is bad and is fake. It is fake, and that's why we are still swimming in poverty in Africa. That's why we are still less informed in Africa. That's why other people still consider us as of course uh, as people who are not educated. If at all our education system was so important, why is it that I've seen people traveling to different countries like USA, like UK, Russia? Uh, these are people that if at all you go the other side, I'm a doctor from Uganda. You travel and go to UK. Trust me or not, you have to get the education system from there. You have to learn, you have to start again in that country. Your papers, let it be a degree, it might be a degree or a master's, it won't be valued. So let's wake up. Let's wake up and understand this, that the education system that we are having here in Africa is not worthy. The education system is not worthy. These are the this is the same thing I was telling the second one the other time, that we need the policies here. We don't need the presidents. We need policies. We need the real policies. We need the real policies here. It is important for us to understand the policies, to get policies that, of course, that make amendments, make referendums in the education system, in the colonial education system that we are having today. A lot of parents, African parents today, desire to take their kids to school, even when these parents they did not attain any education, even when they don't know how to write, but they fight so much to take their kids to school. At the end, as someone has graduated out of school, is not employed, he goes back to the parent, starts disturbing the parent. These days they even sell land. He sells the parents within the land, goes to the city, eat the money. still stays unemployed because of the education system. So we call upon all our leaders. Let me say that because I was looking, I was talking about like the Constitution provides these leaders with the supreme power to appoint, to sign treaties, to amend laws, to create orders, presidential orders. Why don't they create? Why don't they form presidential orders to make referendums in education system that we are having? So the constitution itself, the democracy itself that we talk about, it is also it is corrupt. It is a corrupt democracy. We talk about democracy, but it is corrupt itself, very corrupt. So in Rwanda, I said that there are three categories of people. Someone, if at all you're preparing for a visit to Rwanda, just be ready to meet these three categories of people because this is how the system organized them to be in Rwanda. The first group being the Tutsi, the second group, actually the Tutsi, they are minorities also. They constitute of or to over 14% of the general population in Rwanda. Be ready to see the Tutsi. You'll find them in Kigali. These people reside so much in town areas. Be ready to see um, be ready to see the Hutus. This is the minority population that constitutes for over 85% of the people. These people reside in the villages. You'll find the Hutus in the villages. This is how they are organized. Ofori Menso from Facebook. Thank you, Ofori. So uh, just be ready to see those people in the villages, the Hutu, then the Twa. This is a category of people that lives both on the streets and in forests. Because this is how these people are organized to be. It is the same thing. The way these people are divided, it is the same way you're going to find them in education system. You will still see that the Hutus go to different schools compared to the Hutus. Remember, the government is led by by the Tutsi. Of course, the Rwandan government is a Tutsi-dominated government. So the Tutsis go to different universities in Rwanda. The Tutsis go to different schools, elementary schools, because there is no way a Hutu person from a village is going to take. He can't even afford to take a kid to a Tutsi-based school that is in town. It is very hard. And it is the same way how job opportunities have been, of course, separated. This is how people have been separate. This is how job opportunities have been separated from these people, just because of these classes, this ratio, this Afrophobia that is within the Rwandan land, because a lot of divisions. However much they say that a genocide ended, but people are still separated. These are black people, these are African people that are segregating themselves from others. It is not only in Rwanda. We see even in South Africa, where the native South Africans they don't like other races from other African continent. They don't like Nigerians. They don't want to see Ugandans. They don't want to hear about Kenyans. They hate to see Ghanaians within South Africa. What are we on? Well, why are we so blind to see this and understand this? So, the other issue in Rwanda is about the religion. We see that the largest faith in Rwanda is the Catholicism, but there have been, of course, significant changes. The nation's religious demographics since the genocide, with many conversions to evangelical Christianity and to a lesser degree Islam, Protestants, including, of course, the Seventh Day Adventists. Seventh-day Adventists that constitute to 11% of the people, Muslims 2%, and of course 0.2% who claim they are no religious beliefs, they don't believe in any belief in Rwanda. But still the same thing, if at all someone escapes being divided by religion, he can't escape religion by tribalism. He can't escape religion. This is how we are made to, that is, this is how we are designed to be in our small countries. Because we see a lot of people fighting for power, we want change, we want change. And that's what I liked about Kenyans. At first, they protested for the financial bill. Then the coming days, they say that we don't want Ruto. Ruto, you must go. I liked the Kenyans. It started with the financial bill. It ended with Ruto go. Ruto go. You know, it ended with Ruto go. So a lot of things are happening. A lot of things are happening in African countries. So if we hope to see, today we had elections, of course, going on in Rwanda. We had elections going on. People have voted. Of course, we are going to see any change, because what has been happening, it is what that is happening. We may not see, of course, change, but let's wake up as Africans. Let's try to wake up. Let's understand these issues. Let us understand how these things move. Let us understand the importance. Let us understand the worthy, the energies, the strength Africans hold in African continent. Let's not leave certain issues for certain people. Those issues that must be handled by a certain group of people. These things are eating us. These things are barren